let's get this thing up here. Refresh it. Oh, there we go. Hello, David. How are you doing? Hope you had a good day. Having a good day. Whatever you want to say about it, I guess. Hope you enjoyed the races this weekend. Let's make sure. That says everything's operational. All right, cool. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I like to make sure everything's operating. In between the lanes, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, a good race yesterday, says David. Yeah, it was decent. Not the best NASCAR at COTA race, but I mean, it wasn't bad for sure. So I enjoyed it. But there's a lot of people that I intentionally didn't wear a hat at the beginning of this thing. I thought my hair wasn't hectic enough, so I could. It's been a while since I brought this hat out. Thought I could bring it in like some secret fancy way, but this. A lot of people wearing this after this weekend. A lot after the races at COTA. Truck Series, nothing crazy, nothing really worthy of this hat. Maybe a couple feathers ruffled somewhere that I missed. Other than that, all was good. But Austin Hill, for some reason, really wants to wear this hat. I am still baffled. Maybe he's changed his mind. We'll see this week at Richmond. I'm sure he's going to have some sort of media availability or someone's going to interview him. But Austin Hill's take on those final 2 laps of the Xfinity Series were interesting. I watched the replay. I watched the highlights of the Truck, Xfinity, and Cup race all before I started doing this. And Hill hit SVG like 3 times. I mean, he didn't annihilate him, and he didn't wreck him. You know, it was a fair bump and run. What Austin Hill did, it was a fair bump and run. But when you bump and run somebody, if they can get back to you, you should expect it back. And SVG did it back, and he did it a little bit more aggressive. But Austin Hill, you just did it to him. What did you expect? And SVG, he was all smiles after the race. I thought he'd be a little bit pissed off that Austin Hill was saying all that. And then on the front stretch, on the cool-down lap, just tried to obliterate SVG right in front of me. So that was interesting. I was yelling at Austin Hill, as I'm sure you guys saw in the video. Back to the comments, and we can deep dive into all that stuff. In between the lanes, if I missed you, sorry. What's up? Micah Brown says, so far I think the road course and short track package has improved a bit. Yeah, I mean, the thing about COTA, what I really like about COTA is that there are 2 long straights that it really makes possible to have passes, to set yourself up for passes. Whereas some tracks like Sonoma doesn't have a lot of long straights. Even the Roval doesn't really have it, but the Roval's so unique that you can make passing zones anywhere. But COTA, even if the car is not, cooperating in terms of the quality of racing, you have that long braking zone into turn 12. You have the ability to set yourself up in turn 11. You have the ability to set yourself up out of turn 20 into turn 1. And I saw, God, there were so many passes in turn 19 and 20. Like, I don't know why it surprised me. So many moves were being made there on Saturday. That was like SVG's probably top passing zone. I was watching him, and he'd set up 19 and he'd kind of break really early, take 19 really hard, and dive to the inside of whoever he was passing into 20. That was a very popular move, which I just really didn't expect. So, but yeah, I thought it was a decent race. It wasn't great, but it was good. Once again, there were a lot of people complaining, which I was surprised about. My biggest complaint is the stage cautions. I've never liked stage cautions. I've liked the idea of stages because they do indeed bring something. It awards consistency. If you lead 230 out of 267 laps, but there's a late race caution, you get wrecked and finish 30th, you get yourself some points to reward yourself for running well throughout the day. But I've never liked the cautions. I'm seeing that there's a lot of comments here. I apologize. I'm going to be behind just because I didn't do a race recap. I have a lot of thoughts on this weekend because I was at the track and I didn't get to do my normal thing. So I apologize for being behind. I'm about to get back to him though. But yeah, I thought the racing was decent. Nothing insanely good, but it was not bad either. Yeah, Byron dominated, but you had Christopher Bell closing in at an alarming rate if you were a Byron fan there at the end. If Ty Gibbs had let him go, or if Christopher Bell could have got by Ty Gibbs, half a lap earlier, I think Christopher Bell wins that race, or at the very least has a shot to maybe bump him out of the way. And once again, I've never been a fan of team orders, but from Ty Gibbs' perspective, you're not catching up to Byron. You're probably not going to unless Byron makes a mistake. If I was Ty Gibbs, I would have said, oh, maybe Christopher Bell goes up and wrecks them both and I have a shot at the win. But ultimately, he was racing 100%, and I can't complain about that. So, once again, my only complaint with this race, the stage cautions. Other than that, it was a decent race. I would say decent. First truck win for Toyota on Saturday. I didn't even think about that. So, thanks for bringing that up in between the lanes. Yeah, Corey Heim just obliterated the field. Even with those late race cautions, I was really concerned he was going to get wrecked there, but he survived. He did a good job surviving those last 2-3 restarts. And yeah, he just really kind of dominated the day. So far, we looked at that. I had my NASCAR app open and was checking in on fantasy. And I saw at one point I was tied for the lead in the fantasy during the race. Oh, yeah, good point. We got to check the fantasy. I didn't even think about that. I haven't checked them, honestly. Fantasy Live. Actually, I'm going to read a few more comments, and then, because I'm so far behind, then I will go to the fantasy standings after I read 10 or so. Aussie here, love your work. Thank you, Colin. Glad you have enjoyed the content. Glad you're here on the live stream. I don't know what time it is in Australia. My guess is noon. Is it noon over there? Is it the morning over there? It's 5 o'clock here in the US of A, Central Time Zone. But yeah, a lot of Australians and New Zealanders want to know how SVG is doing. A lot of interest in those videos. So thank you guys for the support on that for sure. But I'm glad I get to update you on your guy, SVG. He had a great shot Saturday. Sunday, not as strong of a day from him. He had some problems late in the race, lost first gear, and then a speeding penalty as well. So, yeah, so tough time for him. But ultimately, the Xfinity race, competitive speed as we all expected. And then as for Cup, he was running 9th to 12th most of the day, other than when he had that penalty, which he said was an issue with his dash, so he didn't know how fast he was going on pit road. And then ultimately losing first gear, that did him in, and he finished 20th, I think, 20th, 21st. So definitely not the weekend I think SVG fans expected from him on the Cup side, but for the Xfinity side, that was about what they expected. Him and Allmendinger, if there were no stage cautions in that Xfinity Series race, I think Allmendinger and SVG would have put on a generational show. I'm going to put together my full video for tomorrow, but they gapped the field by like half the front stretch in 2 laps. It was insane. And the two of them were like within 2 or 3 car lengths. So Allmendinger and SVG were the class of the field. Neither of them won, but they were the class of the field. If there was no stage cautions, I think they would have just ran far and away with it. So yeah, very, very good performance by him on Saturday. Sunday, had some issues beyond his control, but still he was running respectable before that. Question move, says David. Not sure what you mean by that. Ernest Cunningham says, I wouldn't call it a bump and run. He really parked him wide. I'm assuming you're referring to the Xfinity finish. So Austin Hill on the initial restart, SVG and Austin Hill on the inside lane got great launches. The outside, I forget who's on the outside. I think it was Sam Mayer, maybe. Just didn't get as good of a launch. SVG, all he had to do, he had the restart. He had got away. Austin Hill was even, but he had gotten an even start, but that didn't mean he was even alongside him. So SVG was able to cover the bottom of the track so no one could dive bomb him, shove him off, kind of like what he did to Allmendinger and Ty Gibbs. But the problem is, in NASCAR, you're vulnerable to the bumper. And some of these guys will send it from very far back to bump someone out of the way. If you haven't looked it up, look up 2023 Xfinity Series, Ty Gibbs, Sam Mayer, Watkins Glen. Sam Mayer sent it from deep to wreck Ty Gibbs, and it got crazy up in there. So Austin Hill didn't do anything egregious. He didn't do anything insane. That is a typical, as I said earlier, that was a typical NASCAR bump and run. That is fair game. You can do that, but when you do that, if that same person has the opportunity to do it to you the same lap or the next lap, you should be expecting it. And for some reason, Austin Hill did not expect it. And his post-race interview, he's saying, oh, I'm just so glad the 97 didn't win. I'm like, dude, you did the same thing to him. So I was frustrated with Austin Hill's response to that. Austin Hill's he's a really good driver. He's a competitive driver. He's a championship caliber driver in the Xfinity Series, but there's been a couple situations over the last year or two that he has not responded the best way, and that was one of them. Once again, maybe he's changed his mind. Maybe he's looked at it different after seeing a couple replays. But the initial response I was not a fan of. But two really talented drivers going for the win, and ultimately neither of them won. It was Kyle Larson stealing one, as many would say. Let's see who we just read. The comment from Ernest. In between the lanes says McDowell didn't help me. Luckily, another road course ace helped me and Martin Truex Jr. Yeah, okay, let's do the fantasy. Let's see, where did it go? Fantasy League. Here we go. All right, I'm going to read you guys the fantasy results. If you guys are not in the fantasy league, we have a fantasy NASCAR league. You get to pick your roster every single week. You get to pick your drivers, who you think is going to do good, who you think is going to do best. You have one garage entry, and with that garage entry, you can switch your lineup up to the end of stage 2. So I'm going to put that link in the comments, the live stream comment thingy, so you can join if you want to. We have 16 members. It's just for fun. Have a good time. Every week during the Monday week live stream, the Monday after, we read the live standings. So I'm going to pin that message. There you go. I will get back to these comments after I read these standings. Big Hat LJ remains in the lead of the Fantasy League. He took the lead last week from Zerkman95, who is currently second and has been. Dan, the Jets fan, has moved up to the podium in 3rd place. 4th place, It Factor Autosport Incorporated. 5th place, PC_18. 6th place is me. Solid top 10 going. 7th place, Hell on Wheels 24. 8th place, Pens_22. 9th place, Otterbear 8. 10th place, Dr. Zero. 11th place, RT Racing. 12th place is Matt Smith 53. 13th is 45 and 2311 fan. 14th is Stevie G. 15th is Shane Van Hamburger Puns. And 16th is Micah MLB 15. So make sure to join the Fantasy League. We have a good time. It's good fun. We read the results every week. Everyone talks about it in the comments. I think In Between the Lanes is the one that was leading for a bit there. But it's ultimately 2nd place now. But currently, your leader is Big Hat LJ. So he is your leader in the official Fantasy League for this channel. So feel free to join if you want. If you don't, it's no big deal, guys. We're just doing it for fun, trying to have a good time outside of just the YouTube comments, outside of the YouTube stuff. Trying to do something different. Figured we'd do it this year. Now back to your comments and your questions. Watching SVG and Scotty Mack a few years ago, that was a common passing strategy. Get the nose in and stop them turning in and park them wide. Yeah, oh man, oh, that move that SVG did on Ty Gibbs, that last second kind of fake right, dummy him right, and then just send it up the inside left. He did that right in front of me at turn 1 on the Xfinity race. That was a fantastic, fantastic move. Everyone in the turn 1 stand saw that, and we were like, oh my God, that was epic. They got some claps, actually. I wish I got it on video, but it was a great move. It was a late move, but it was a great move. Nothing dirty, no contact. So it was ultimately a great move by SVG. Let's see here. Your take on the Christopher Bell versus Kyle Busch incident. Here's what I've been wanting to talk about. You guys know, if you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you guys know how much I love fights in NASCAR, confrontations in NASCAR. I was so excited about Ty Gibbs versus Joey Logano at the Clash. And once again, man, that is the most mad I have seen Kyle Busch in a while. He was wearing this hat. That's the most mad I've seen Kyle Busch in quite a while. So what happened was, entering turn 1, Kyle Busch took it wide. Christopher Bell, as Ayrton Senna once said, there was a gap. A racing driver takes the gap. Christopher Bell took the gap and ultimately spun out Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch was running 5th to 7th most of the day, and he was able to recover, finish 9th in the race. But ultimately, as expected, he was not too thrilled with that move, and you can't blame him. When you get spun out like that, when it's one guy that does it, you're allowed to be pissed off. You're allowed to be mad. And he didn't go and punch him in the face. He didn't go and fight him, but Kyle Busch was heated. He gets up in his face. He kind of shakes his head a bit. He says, that's not like 2, 3. So maybe like that's not twice. That's 3 times now, or that's twice now. If there's a third, I'm going to wreck you back. So, and you got to remember, those two are former teammates. This isn't like, Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson. This is Kyle Busch, the former, he used to own the truck that Christopher Bell used to drive. There's a lot of connections between these two. So I feel like it would have to take a lot for Kyle Busch to be that pissed at Christopher Bell. So we're going to see what ends up happening there. If Kyle Busch retaliates in any way, it's not going to come down to a Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth thing. But, if Kyle Busch just doesn't cut Christopher Bell and he breaks in the future, or if he spins him out somewhere, but that was a little surprising for it to be between those two. But Christopher Bell took out both of the Kyles yesterday, took out Kyle Larson as well. But Larson, he struggled a bit in the Cup race yesterday. So, yeah, the Larson-Bell incident was fully on Bell. The Busch-Bell incident, I would say, was more 50-50. I hope those two talk it over, look at the replay before the race is over. But, yeah, Kyle Busch was pissed. So, yeah, it was... I love a good confrontation. No blood, no NASCAR officials breaking it up. But Kyle Busch was pissed off, and it has been a while since we've seen Kyle Busch that pissed off. Coming from F1, the track limits at COTA were wild. Yeah, that's Colin who said that. Yeah, it's always the meme that happens every time we go to COTA or even Watkins Glen. But NASCAR, no track limits. The only track limits, and this was a heavy talked about topic, was the corner cutting. And yes, I think NASCAR does have to enforce corner cutting. Look, track limits, my opinion is, if it's paved, go for it. It's the same thing for F1. I'm an F1 fan, but I've always been in the opinion of, if it's paved, you should be allowed to drive on it. If you don't want them driving out there, put grass or dirt out there, and that's a self-policing penalty, because you'll either spin out or you'll lose it, and you'll just go... Blah, 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 blah. So that's always been my opinion on it, but NASCAR, they take full advantage of it. And as for the corner cutting, you can't put sausage curbs in there because it'll damage the cars too much. And I think a pass-through penalty is severe for the most part. I think it's got to be a 5-second penalty. That if it's like just a slight cutting of the corner, if you take a position by cutting the corner and you don't give it back, okay, maybe that's a pass-through. Or if you just floor it through the S's, that's a pass-through. But SVG getting a 30-second penalty for going that much below the line and not gaining an advantage, that's a bit of an extreme penalty. Chase Elliott got loose and went straight through the turn. It's a penalty. He cut the corner pretty blatantly. But to ruin his race and completely take away his top 10 finish, that's a bit extreme. So I wish NASCAR would find a middle ground. I think penalizing corner cutting is fine. You just got to find a middle ground, a better penalty, because a 30-second penalty is too extreme. A pass-through penalty is too extreme. Sometimes it's good. It's a rightful penalty if someone just cuts the corner, if they gain an advantage. But if it's something small, like they're by themselves and they cut the corner, that's a little bit extreme. So I think they should find a little bit lighter of a penalty, have it on a scale in a sense, and then just judge it from there. Favorite paint schemes from COTA in between the lanes asks this question every single week. Favorite paint schemes. On the Xfinity side of things, I'm trying to think. I really like Daniel Kvyat's paint scheme. Maybe I'm a little biased because I really like him. But, I mean, that teal and black was a really good-looking paint scheme. I think he had a chrome number 2. That was a beautiful race car. Kyle Weatherman's car looked cool on the Xfinity side. As for the Cup Series, let me think here. I'm a Jeff Gordon fan. I love the 24 car, but I hate Raptor. I'm sorry. Exalta should be running all the primaries. Exalta always has beautiful race cars, whereas Raptor always has ugly race cars. The baby puke green was not pretty. I'm sorry, Raptor. If you're watching this, I just don't like your paint schemes. Please do something different. The one in Atlanta was cool when you did the flames with the red, but the baby puke green is not pretty. I'm sorry. I don't like it. I see Craig in the live chat here. See, I have my tracker here where I kind of keep up with the ones that I'm reading, but I can see it for 2 seconds on the screen. And I saw Craig said the Raptor schemes are terrible. I agree with you, Craig. Yeah. Other paint schemes I thought were good. Kamui Kobayashi, his black and gold scheme. Oh, man. That was a pretty one. Kamui was being aggressive yesterday. It was fun to watch him through the stadium section. He was making some bold moves and, not wrecking anyone. But Ricky Stenhouse, man. Ricky Stenhouse is like every American meme. He takes out Kamui Kobayashi like twice yesterday, twice at Indianapolis. He takes out Jenson Button at Indianapolis. I mean, give the entire Department of Defense budget to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. No one will ever attack the United States of America if Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is the primary caregiver or the primary decision maker on that front, because, oh my goodness, he takes out every international driver he can. But yeah, let me think. Chastain, his car looked good. I'm trying to think of any just like stuck out a lot to me. As I said, Kamui's car was really beautiful. Josh Berry had a good looking car, the number 4 car. Reddick's car really popped. The green in person pops a lot more on that Beast Unleashed car. So that was really cool to see. But yeah, you guys will see all the paint schemes tomorrow when I do my full video. I do my normal film them on the pace laps. I tell you to pick your favorite driver, find them, and point them out. So you'll get to see that tomorrow. Bell owned it on the Larson spin as well. Yeah, I saw that. So that was good to see. If Bell would have gotten by Bowman and Gibbs a little bit earlier than he did, he would have got to Byron's bumper. I agree, Micah. I think half a lap. If he did it half a lap earlier, I think he would have made it. I truly do. So, let's see here. Do I have... well, okay. I was going to see if I had a different hat. This one can get tight sometimes. Or not tight, but it's like, it's a thick hat, so it gets almost heavy. You guys don't care. Jack Hawksworth made his truck debut with Tricon. Yeah, he was doing really good. He was up to second at one point, and I was watching him. I was like, man, this guy's really good. I didn't know much about him. I hadn't heard of the name, so I figured, I was like, this is a road course specialist. I remember Christopher Bell was in this car, so they have a rotation of drivers, but he was really impressive. He impressed me, running up front for a good chunk of that race. So, very impressive drive from Jack Hawksworth. Colin says 8 a.m. Tuesday. Yeah, I know what you're talking about because I remember seeing it up here. Australia, it's 8 a.m. in Australia. I don't know every time zone in the world. I know the U.S. time zones because I live in the U.S. of A. I know Australia is usually a day ahead by they're like 15 hours or something away. 18, maybe 15, whatever that number ends up totaling up to. Math is hard. I apologize. But yeah, I just knew it was a long time away. Anyways, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. versus the International Drivers, just like the Indy Road Course. Marco Andretti, yeah, that was wild. That was crazy stupid. I've never seen that before. I've seen a rear tire go off. I've seen someone lose both rear tires or a front tire or whatever. I have never seen the full rear end housing just completely fly off the car. Axle, everything. That was freaky weird. And then it drove right in front of us. We just see the rear end housing just on the back of a truck. I got a small video of it, like 10 seconds. And they had to go through the whole S's or the stadium section, 18, 19, all that. So it stayed on somehow, but it was kind of funny. It really was kind of funny. Thankfully, no one got hurt. Logano and Suarez were in the Xfinity booth. Yeah, I forgot about that until I watched the replay because, you know, I was at the race. I'm going to get a new hat real quick. Give me like 10 seconds. Okay, we're back. All right, Australians and New Zealanders, I'm wearing this one for you. So I wore this all weekend for you guys, for you Australians and New Zealanders. I wore it all weekend. I even yelled at Austin Hill during his interview. You guys would have been so proud of me. I did it for you. Chase Elliott, something about Chase Elliott up here. Where'd it go? Chase Elliott catch break yesterday. Oh, man, he did not. He was running top 10 the majority of the race. He was up into the top 5 at one point. Then he cut the corner, got the penalty, had rallied back up to 11th or 12th and got spun out. I don't know who spun him out or what, if he just clipped the dirt. But yeah, it was kind of like, was it Bristol or Atlanta? Or not Bristol or Atlanta, Bristol or Phoenix, you know, where they had top 5 speed, were looking really good. And then they just kind of had a bad break. Bad caution or whatever, and it just screwed their day. Elliott has not been as bad as last year, and he hasn't really been bad this year. He's been consistently top 15. Even, you know, last week at Bristol took the lead on speed, was top 10 most of the race. Phoenix, he was running top 5 early in that race before the track position kind of screwed him. And this week, same thing, top 5 to top 10 most of the race, but just an unfortunate penalty and an unfortunate spin just kind of ruined their result, and I think he finished 18th or something. But that's kind of crazy. Do you root for Cup drivers if they go down to a truck or Xfinity race? When you say root for, that makes it seem like I'm a fan of. There were some Larson fans around me that were loud. If you go back and watch my video, one person commented on that video. They were like, "Man, is that guy a Larson fan or what?" There were a lot of Larson fans in section turn 1. That were going crazy when Larson took the lead there. But root for, I mean, I like to see them up front because I know they'll make the race interesting. When they run away for it, it's like, I want someone to be competitive. But when it's like yesterday, when you have Shane Van Gisbergen up there, when you have AJ Allmendinger up there fighting for the lead with Larson, that makes it more fun. And it's like, if one of those guys, you know, when an Xfinity guy can beat a Cup guy, oh, it makes it so much cooler. So I don't know if root for is the right word, but I enjoy seeing them in it when it's more competitive in a sense. Doing better in fantasy NASCAR than the March Madness bracket. You took the lead from me in the bracket tournament challenge. Yeah, we didn't get as big of a show out this year in the bracket challenge. I think I did it a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, my bracket actually has survived the first weekend of last year. I'd lost like 3 of my final 4 teams at this point. This year, I've only lost 1, and it was my bold Final 4 take. So I've got 3 of the 4. I'm not complaining. Texas is out, unfortunately, which makes me sad. Sanford got robbed. I'm still pissed off about that. I really am. So mad. Family Odyssey 22 says, I've been loving your content about SVG. Loved your video from the weekend of SVG and Hill's battle, especially your reaction when Hill bumped the Giz after the finish. You suck, Hill. Dude, I was so mad because, I mean, I genuinely was like, Austin Hill, you bumped him first. What did you expect? Did you expect him just to not give it back when he had the opportunity? And then the worst was, you should have heard me. I didn't have it on video, but when he was complaining in his post-race interview, he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad the 97 didn't win. Like, he didn't even try to make the corner." Like, there was like 8 people left in my section, and I yelled, "You idiot! You bumped him first. What did you expect?" And this one lady turned around and she went, "Yeah, what you said." And I was like, "Hey, okay, yeah, this lady gets it." But yeah, I get passionate for some of these things. I can't control it. Sometimes I just get a little bit more mad, and I thought that was stupid. I honestly thought Austin Hill was going to intentionally wreck SVG on the front stretch because he was like pushing him down to the wall. It got crazy there. Much needed top 10 for Kyle Busch. Yeah, they've had a rough go of it so far, and it could have been a top 5, which is I think is why Kyle Busch was frustrated. They finally had a day going their way. They finally had speed, and then Christopher Bell spins him out. And I get why he's mad. I get why he's frustrated. We touched on it a little bit, but man, top 10, still a great day for him. Good points day for him, but I get why he was frustrated there. Bell didn't take out another Kyle and Kyle Petty. Yeah, that's true. Good point. What's up with the no track limits when you race on a circuit and the yellow cautions at the end of the stages make it a hard watch? I think it would have been excellent without those forced yellow. Ernest, I got to admit, on the track limits, I disagree with you. I will admit. I think if it's paved, you should be able to go off of it. In NASCAR, I really like that they don't enforce it. As for stage cautions, they annoy me, especially at the road courses, because it can ruin a road course race. Last year, NASCAR went back to having no stage cautions, but because the next-gen car does not race great on these road courses, we saw 2 average races. We saw 1 good race. Indy road course was good, and then Watkins Glen was an average race, and they said, we're bringing stage cautions back. I'm like, you're overreacting to 2 races, NASCAR, and it's the car's fault, not the track, not the stages. I think that was a TV excuse to get more commercials in. That's my dumb opinion. But ultimately, I've never liked stage cautions. I've liked stages because they award consistency and running up front for the majority of the race. But I do not like stage cautions. So I fully agree with you there. Stage cautions are dumb, but the stages themselves make sense because they award consistency. And they ruin the flow of a race at the road course. It ruins the strategy. I know it makes a new strategy, but it's a forced strategy. Whereas if we let this thing play out naturally, we can get some new, innovative strategies. So it frustrates the crap out of me, but I don't have a big enough brain or get paid enough to make those decisions. If I did, oh my God, the amount of changes I would make, I'd get in trouble. In between the lanes, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc 1-2 finish for Ferrari. Verstappen's car caught fire as well. Lewis Hamilton lost his engine in a massive crash with George Russell. So I had this plan. I was staying with my cousin down in Austin, and I was so tired. You know, I woke up at 5 a.m., drove all the way to Austin, was at the racetrack all day, and I was ready to sleep. But the race started at 11, so I figured I'll watch the start, see if someone takes out Verstappen, but if not, you know, I'll turn it off. Verstappen gets a great launch, runs away, and I was like, oh, well, Max Verstappen wins. I was like, I'm going to watch lap 2. Before I go to bed, I'm going to watch lap 2 just in case, you know, something happens, you know. Sainz gets DRS, and Sainz got DRS, and he passed him. I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, Max is just going to get back and repass him. But then there's smoke, and I was like, oh, he's got a tire rub. But I was like, there's no tire rubs in F1. It just goes flat. And I was like, oh, my God, his car's smoking. Oh, my God, his car is smoking. And his first DNF in 2 years was in the Australian Grand Prix. So Max Verstappen didn't win. It's a miracle. And then I fell asleep by lap 20 because, as I said, I was really tired. I watched the highlights, and George Russell, that was a gnarly crash, but the Alonso penalty was harsh. I mean, come on. 20 seconds for playing defense? I'm sorry, that was a terrible penalty. I fully disagree with that penalty. Horrific penalty. I didn't think it should have been a penalty at all. It was nothing egregious, but F1 and those stewards disagree with me. I've seen much worse wrecks in F1 or much more egregious things happen in F1 and get less penalties. When Verstappen brake checked Hamilton, that was a 10-second penalty. When Hamilton sent Verstappen into the wall, that was a 10-second penalty at Silverstone. And yet this was a 20-second penalty and Alonso didn't even hit him. I thought that was an extremely stupid penalty. Alonso got screwed there. Couple of cuts can gain the second advantage that allows someone to keep out of range of an attack they'd otherwise be under. As such, gaining the advantage and keeping a place by cutting, says Ricky. Yeah, Ricky, for sure. I get what you're saying there. But once again, I think a 30-second penalty at the end of a race or even a pass-through penalty, which is, essentially the same thing in race, that's too much. I think a 5-second penalty is good enough when it's just like one corner. As I said, if you floor it through there and you intentionally miss, all right, that's a 30-second penalty. But it's just too harsh. Like SVG, he was fighting for the win and, he made up maybe a quarter of a second at most there. Are we really going to penalize him 30 seconds for a quarter of a second? I just thought that was a bit extreme. A bit dumb. And once again, I think cutting corners should be penalized, but this weekend was too extreme. They got to find a better middle ground. I don't know why I'm going left. Middle ground. Raptor schemes are horrible, Craig. High five. Denny Hamlin rocked the Interstate Batteries colors this weekend. Oh my gosh. When the Interstate Batteries, I'm going to keep talking as I get a water here. When the Interstate Battery scheme is on any paint scheme that is not the 18 or 54, it is what the internet calls cursed, and I don't like it. Like, it's a pretty paint scheme, but seeing it with the 11 on the side just gives me the shiver. It is like, oh, it's freaky. It freaks me out. My, it's still cold. That's freaky. Speaking of things that are freaky, this is from yesterday. We just said that. Austin Dillon got stage points. Yeah, he got like 5th in stage 1. I mean, that's just how when the stage cautions exist, that's just how it works. Austin Dillon gets stage points at a road course. I will never forget Austin Dillon had a shot at winning the Chicago street race, and he wrecked himself with like 10 to go rather than being patient. Oh, Austin Dillon. Sometimes he shows up and he's got it, but sometimes he really doesn't. Respectfully. That Texas race, he played defense really well. That Chicago race, he played offense really bad. All I know, I went from 10th to 7th in the league. Woohoo, says Craig. Yeah, Craig, I'm right in front of you. I don't know how long that'll last. Richmond is a tough one. I'll probably put Denny Hamlin on my roster. He's always good there. I'll put Truex there, but I won't give away any other trade secrets. Josh Berry took out Kobayashi as well. Yeah, I feel so bad for Kamui. Kamui had speed, was making, as I said earlier in this live stream, he was making some aggressive moves in front of me in 12, 13, 15, like some aggressive passes, and he was making them stick. He wasn't roughing anyone up. He wasn't wrecking anyone, but then everyone else would wreck him. It's like he learned from Indianapolis. Don't be passive. Like, they will be aggressive. If you let them be aggressive, you have to be aggressive back, and he used that this race. He was aggressive. He was fun to watch. But Stenhouse just kept on wrecking him. Well, he only wrecked him once, I think, Sunday. But I think not Bubba. Barry wrecked him once, and then he got spun out another time. But, yeah, I feel bad. I think he could have had a top 15, but ultimately that was not how it went. Chase Elliott, all white. I wish they would make the hood on the all-white paint scheme for the Napa blue, and then everything would flow perfectly. But I personally like the all-blue better. But that's just me. Martin Truex Jr. Bass Pro paint scheme. Yeah, the orange on the front of the car is really pretty. I want a hat like that. I love that hat. Yeah, I remember when this comment came in, Craig. The don't bother me, I'm crabby hat. which is what Kyle Busch was wearing on Sunday. Not literally, but figuratively. I found that at like a Maryland gas station. I was up in Maryland on a family, visiting some family or something, or some friends, something like that. And we went over somewhere in Maryland, stopped at a gas station. I thought that hat was cool. It was like $10, and I've had it ever since. It's a good hat. It works out. It's old. It's beat up now, but it's great. Whenever there's a fight, I wear that hat. Oh, my goodness. The comments always shift every once in a while. It's very annoying. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., America 1776. We are the champs. We should have known from then. Connor Zilic, top 10 finish as well for Spire. Man, he cooked it through turn 1 on lap 1, and he went to the back of the field multiple times, came back to the front, and then ends up getting top 10. Not bad for a 17 years old, by the way. He's impressive so far. It's 11:24 a.m. Tuesday in New Zealand. That was 16 minutes ago. Oh, my, I'm 16 minutes behind on comments. My goodness. The Xfinity race was not on TV in Canada. Duke Chronic, I'm sorry that you didn't have it. I know no one in Canada, so I can't help you out there. I'm sorry. If I could, I would. Truex Jr. was in the middle of a LaJoy and Wallace sandwich. Yeah, LaJoy qualifies top 5 and then just throws it away half a lap into the race and just wrecks himself, Truex, and Bubba. Also, Bubba came from the back like 3 different times. That was Bubba, we usually make fun of him because he's not a good road course racer, but over the last year, he's really picked it up. Has scored stage points at Watkins Glen, finished top 5 at Indianapolis a couple of years ago. He's been picking it up on the road courses. I'm not saying he's going to win a road course anytime soon, but he could start getting to the top 10 a little bit more consistently. He was impressive. Clyde didn't cut the course to gain an advantage. I'm assuming you're talking about William Clyde Elliott the third or second, third. I don't think he gained an advantage. I think you're right there. I became a Larson with the accent A-N-T. I'm not sure what that means. Last time 24 on pole, same year Jeff Gordon. I'm a Jeff Gordon fan. I'm a Jeff Gordon fan too. Yeah, pole to win. It's been a while since the 24 has done that. Man, I'm trying to think. Was he on the pole at the Brickyard in 2014? If he wasn't on pole, he started second that race. He was on the pole in Michigan 2014. So Michigan 2014 is probably the last time that the 24 was on pole and won the race. So, yeah, I love to see it. I love to see the 24 win every time because it reminds me of Jeff Gordon. But once again, I don't like the Raptor paint scheme. Please do it in Exalta. Saturday was a cool finish. Yeah, for sure, Duke Chronic. It was a cool finish. It was an epic finish, but I just don't like how Austin Hill handled it after the race. But it was epic. It was typical NASCAR. Bump and run on the restart into turn 1. And then on the last lap, SVG gives it back to Austin Hill, a bump and run in turn 15. But because of that, Kyle Larson on fresher tires was able to take advantage, pass them both, and run away with the win. So really, really cool finish to that race. I honestly think that Chase or Bowman will get replaced in the next season or two, my opinion, if they don't improve. Bowman just got his second straight top 5. What do you want him to do? He led the points last year, and then he got hurt, and he was recovering basically the rest of the season. And this year he has 3 top 5s. I'm pretty sure he's top 10 in the points. What do you want him to do? As for Elliott, Elliott's been consistently top 15. He's still struggling a little bit. They haven't had winning pace yet, but I think Elliott, once he gets a win, once he realizes, oh yeah, I'm good, once he wins again, it'll click in his brain and he'll rattle off a few more. So, Craig, you're allowed to have your opinion, but I personally do not understand that opinion. I don't see either of them getting replaced unless they willingly want to go somewhere else. Like if Elliott wanted to go to Trackhouse, if Elliott or if Bowman wanted to go to Gibbs, and they had the opening, then yeah, they could do that. But I don't see either of them getting booted out. I think that's too extreme. Fox went to commercial during Martin Truex Jr.'s pit stop, and Happy Harvick didn't give me good news on that pit stop. Not 100% sure what that means, but Fox and commercials. You know how many commercials I saw this weekend? 0. Haha. I don't get to rub that in people's face a lot, but I'll take advantage of it here. I saw 0 commercials this weekend, so. Go Tar Heels. Sorry, I live in North Carolina. Hey, they're my pick to win the bracket this year. So, yeah, go Tar Heels. Luckily, Truex Jr. still got a top 10, as mentioned before. Shane's learning how to pay back in stock car racing. Yeah, he did it properly. He didn't completely annihilate Austin Hill. He didn't intentionally wreck him. I think when you get bumped out of the lead, I think the most extreme thing you can do in return is spin them out. I think bumping them back like SVG did, I think that is the perfect retaliation. But spinning them out is the most extreme thing you can do. If you completely junk them, if you completely wreck them, then that's too far. But ultimately, yeah, SVG did the payback perfectly. How did you like your seat? Was it easy to get in and out? Asks Alex. So, I will explain this in the video tomorrow, but on Saturday, I parked in the same parking lot Saturday and Sunday. I parked in lot F. I think it was F maybe, or lot L. Whatever's closest to turn 12. That's the parking lot I parked in. The general admission free parking. I parked there, and it's easy to get in. It takes about a 5 to 10 minute walk. Nothing crazy. Depends if you get stopped at a crosswalk. It's easy to get in. The turn 12, turn 15 grandstands are right there. I think there's a parking lot on the other side of the track if you're on the turn 1 side of things. But Saturday, oh my Lord, I wore myself out. I walked to turn 1. I stayed in turn 1 for Cup Series qualifying. Then I walked down to turn 20 for the final round of qualifying, which is a long walk, by the way, but thankfully it's downhill. And, well, first of all, I had to walk from turn 12 over a couple of bridges with steep steps, by the way, then go up the hill to turn 1, down the hill to turn 20, where I filmed the rest of Cup qualifying. Then I walked over to turn 15. They were actually enforcing tickets, like where you sat and stuff, and I had a general admission pass, so I had to be careful of how I got in to my seats and stuff. Well, they weren't my seats, to these seats and stuff. So turn 15, every single section was guarded, so I couldn't get in there. Turn 12 had an opening for the truck race, so I got in there and I stayed there the whole truck race. Didn't eat anything, didn't drink anything out of risk of, I didn't want to have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the race and get locked out, essentially. I mean, if I left my bag there, but I was by myself, so I didn't want to leave my bag there. But turn 12 has great seats. You can see all of the stadium section. If you sit too low, you can't see turn 1, but if you sit row 12 or above, you can see turn 1. You can see turns 12 through 16. You can see most of the back stretch. You can see turns 3 through 9. But I will say they have recently, I went last in 2021, they have recently added a giant shed or some kind of compound in the middle that blocks part of turn 6. That used to not be there, and you could see all of the S's. So there is a small area that blocks turn 6, but other than that, turn 12, you can see a lot. Turn 12, there's a lot of passing there. So if you go to COTA, turn 1 and turn 12 are my suggestions if you are looking for a permanent seat. Just because turn 12, you can see so much. You can see turn 1 over on the hill. You can see the S's all the way through here. You can see turn 12 right in front of you with great passing. You can see the moves getting set up all the way down the back stretch. And then turn 1, I've never sat in turn 1 prior to this weekend, but I snuck up there, found an opening. It's a really cool sight. You don't get to see as much of the track as you do in turn 12, but it's really pretty. You're on top of the hill. You get to see a lot of passes in turn 1 for the NASCAR race, but you can see a little bit through the bridge down there at turn 15, and you can kind of see turn 12, at least the entrance. You can't actually see the turn itself. You can see a little bit of 13 and 14. You can't see 15. You can see 16, 17, 18, and 19. And then obviously you can see the exit of 20 all the way up through 1 and 2. And then the hill kind of blocks 3. And then you can see 4. And then you can see 10 and 11, or 10 way on the other side where it kind of comes back uphill. So turn 1, You can't see as much as turn 12, but ultimately you can still see a good bit of the racetrack. And also you can see the Austin skyline. It's a really pretty terrain. You can see the UT Tower. The UT Tower is short compared to the Austin skyline, but, you know, hook 'em horns, man. So yeah, that was a long answer to your question, Alex, but turn 12 and turn 1. And then general admission, if you just bring your own chair, you can sit anywhere and get a good view. And at the NASCAR race, you can find a good view anywhere in general admission. F1, it's a little bit more tricky because they have more grandstands up, but NASCAR, they only have the 3 grandstands, so you can find a good seat anywhere for NASCAR if you do general admission. Nemechek top 10 at one point due to strategy. I think he got some stage points, correct me if I'm wrong there. Do you see Shane going up to the Cup Series next year if he doesn't get the results this year, or do you think his results will help him out a lot more? It's a little bit early to tell, but obviously I think he's going to be competitive at the road courses once he gets more under his belt. The ovals is still a question mark right now. I'm not saying he's going to be bad at them, but he hasn't struggled on the ovals at all. It's just that he's still learning, so it's too early to make a call on if he's good or bad. But it's just too early to tell. They obviously, if Trackhouse wants to get him in the Cup Series next year, they're going to have to buy a charter, and they're going to have to make that move either in the summer or early fall. So they got to make that quickly. But I mean, he's been running top 20 in the ovals for the most part, even top 15 at times. So yeah, it's a little bit too early to tell, but obviously the road courses he'll be competitive at. So it's early to determine, but in terms of candidacy for a seat, if Trackhouse opens a third car, he's absolutely the favorite to get that seat. No disrespect to Zane Smith, a young prospect that Trackhouse has on their contract sheet, but his rookie season at Spire has been horrendous. This week was his best week. I think he finished 15th or something, which is a good result, but other than that, it has been a terrible rookie season for Zane Smith. Some of his doing, some not of his doing. So I think he needs a little bit more time to develop, whereas SVG, he's already got some experience in racing behind him. Not saying that Zane Smith doesn't, but the fact of the matter is SVG's like 34. Zane Smith's like, 24? So SVG, I think, is the top candidate for the next Trackhouse car if they indeed do open a next one. 24 got good points yesterday with the stopping before the green checkered. Yeah, he would have swept the stages if not for the stage cautions, which I've already, and many others in the comments here have said. Indy 400's back. Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk about it more once we get closer to it. I don't really have anything else on it. Do you like Boyer in the booth? Yeah, I like Boyer in the booth. Sometimes he can get a little crazy, but I like him. I think he does a good job. Obviously didn't hear him yesterday because I was at the race, which means I didn't have to see commercials. Denny Hamel will be on Harvick's Happy Hour podcast. Neat. It was spoiled for me. I had the race on the DVR. I'm sorry that happened to you, Duke Chronic. That sucks. That's sad. Albon took Sargent's car for the week. That was one of the stupidest things I read over the weekend. So, all right, if you don't watch F1 or if you don't know about F1, here's what happened. Alex Albon is better than his teammate Logan Sargent. I'm just going to say it. He's faster. He scores more points than him when they do score points. But here's what happened over the race weekend. Williams did not bring a backup chassis, which is essentially your backup car. And Alex Albon, the better driver, wrecked in practice. He obliterated the car. The chassis was cracked. It was done for. They could not repair it in time for the race Sunday. So do you know what Williams did? Williams went over to Logan Sargent, who had kept it clean all weekend, who's been doing his job, and they said, hey, Logan, by the way, Alex crashed his car yesterday, so he's going to need yours this weekend. So you're going to sit on the sidelines. You're not doing anything this weekend. Massive respect to Sargent for not saying screw you and flying home or saying like eat poop or something like that. He took it like a champ. That made me so mad. Infuriating that they did that. Like, look, I get that Albon's a better driver. I get that he's your better chance at points. But to boot someone out when Albon was the one who crashed makes no sense to me. And Albon didn't even score points. So they did all that for nothing. Good job. Good job, Williams. You guys are geniuses. First, you didn't bring a backup car. Then you booted out the guy who didn't wreck it. You're geniuses. You are geniuses. Disagreement on the penalty side, says Ricky. You nailed that. I'm really behind on comments. I got to speed this up because I have no idea what it's about. If you get a chance, watch the Supercars AGP. Young Matt Payne got done dirty, leading to races. Bump and runs are not allowed in Supercars, but rubbing is racing and makes it exciting. Interesting. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a 4,000 subscriber special, and I really want to dedicate it to the Australians and New Zealanders because you guys have really been so supportive. Everyone has been supportive over the forever, don't get me wrong, but over the last 2 months, the Australians and New Zealanders have shown me a lot of love, and I want to give back that love. And so I'm thinking for my 4,000 subscribers special, like SVG highlights from Supercars and reacting to them. But the thing is I need you to tell me which ones to watch. So I may announce that in a couple of weeks. I don't know when. Maybe this week, maybe next week. I just got to somehow figure it out. I also got to figure out this laptop because it sucks at live streaming. William Byron did great in the race. Where did that go? With points, yeah. Mavis Colors Sports Clips, aside from FedEx Colors, not bad looking on Hamlin's car. Last week, auto owners insurance scheme looked good for Truex. No net spin scheme for Busch this past weekend. Rocked those colors last year. Yeah, I don't think they're a sponsor at RCR anymore. Waiting to see the Camaro SVG go on sale in New Zealand. Like the diecast car, like the model car. I didn't even look at the hauler this week to see if they had one. I'll check it when they're at my home track here in about 3 weeks. Top 15 for Bubba. Yeah, we talked about that a bit. Byron blew out his rear tires during his burnout. Yeah, I saw it on the TV. Obviously, he did not do it near me in turn 12. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch fight. It wasn't really a fight. It was a confrontation with some angry head movements and some fingers. He went 2, 3. It was aggressive. Very aggressive. I know I mentioned this before, but I like the new Camry body style. At first, I thought it was so ugly on that test car. It looked awful, and then it looked bad on the 43. But then more paint schemes came out, and I was like, okay, I was wrong. It's actually pretty, and it looks good on most of the cars. Just some paint schemes just don't look good on it. But for the most part, they do. Steve Sarkisian was at the track. Yeah, I clapped for him when they introduced him. Yeah, that was cool to see him at the track. Cameron Dicker, former Longhorn legend, beat OU in 2018. Really cool to see him at the track. Giancarlo Esposito isn't a Longhorn football player or coach, but oh my gosh. He's an incredible actor. I love his work. Breaking Bad. What else has he been in? He's been in, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, but he's been great in so many of the things that I've seen him in. So yeah, it was really cool to see him. And then he was in all the post-race celebration pictures with William Byron. That was so random, but that's so cool to see, a celebrity embrace NASCAR, go to a NASCAR event, promoting their own thing. He's promoting his TV show. And yeah, he gets to say, start your engines, stay at the race for a little bit, maybe leave a little bit early for traffic. But he stayed the whole race. He watched the whole race. He sat in Byron's pit box for a bit. And in fact, he celebrated with Byron. It was so cool to see. So that was really cool to see him do that. Darlington throwback favorite paint scheme 2024. There hasn't been enough to really say I have a favorite yet. So nothing yet. 1 point can make the difference between several $1 million. I'm assuming you're talking about F1. Yeah, I get it, but ultimately, no points were scored. So tough. Old F1 fans not batting an eyelid. New F1 fans up in arms. Yeah, I can't, once again, Albon's a better driver than Sargent. So from the business standpoint, yeah, I understand why they did it, but just legit. How am I trying to say this? Not legit. I'm trying to think of the right word. If you told someone who didn't know anything about F1 And even if you use the same names, they know nothing about F1. If I tell you Alex Albon crashed his car, and because of that, they take Logan Sargent, who has not crashed his car, they take him out of his car and put Albon in the car, that would seem unfair. Now, if this was like Max Verstappen and Red Bull and Logan Sargent, then it's like, okay, Max Verstappen's going to win you the race if his car doesn't die, of course. But I just don't. And it's beyond me. 27 versus 1 point. What do you expect? Once again, Albon is the better driver, yes, but it's still early in the season. Sargent trying to gain confidence, trying to improve. That is like the ultimate confidence killer. You know, he's trying to improve on last season. He had a rough go at it at times, but at times he looked good. You know, COTA, he looked good. Vegas early in the weekend, he looked good, but both Williams fell off on that Vegas weekend. But ultimately, he's trying to, gain confidence. He's trying to learn how you're supposed to learn, and how are you supposed to gain confidence when you get booted out of your seat for literally doing nothing wrong. I just don't get it, man. I kind of get it, but I don't. Christopher Bell is going to be a great championship someday. Hey, he's my pick for the championship this year. I hope he gets it done, because then I would be right, and that makes me happy. So, and also my post season live stream, when we come back and look at my regular season, early preseason predictions, I would be unbearable. I still bring up the fact that I picked the 2020 champion accurately. So, Sandown 2016 SVG versus Tander. I was there for that one. I don't have a notebook on me. Actually, I'm kidding. My backpack is right. Yeah, look at this. I got my backpack right here. Okay. I'm writing down your notes. Australians and New Zealanders in the comments. This is your opportunity. Tell me some SVG supercar highlights to watch, and I will. This is going to be the 4,000 subscriber special. So, let's see. SVG versus Tander 2016. Where did this come from? Sandown. Let's see, who wrote this comment? Bon Jovi fan said that. Bon Jovi fan. I'll make sure to give you credit if we indeed do use that highlight. Jono, apologies if I pronounced that wrong. 82 says, would have loved to see SVG burn it down on Saturday. Was so close. New Zealand, is that a New Zealand flag? It's hard to tell on this laptop, but I think that's red stars. So I think that's a New Zealand flag and a Kiwi. So if it's an Australian flag, it's very tiny on my laptop. So please don't yell at me. I do know the difference between the Australian and New Zealand flag. I do. But he says, yeah, we already said that or read that. Yeah, for sure. I thought he was going to get it done. That late race caution, I was a little frustrated because, like, man, Xfinity Series field, you couldn't keep it clean for two more laps, let him get to the white flag. But that just told me that SVG is going to win a road course race this year in the Xfinity Series. I know a lot of you from Australia and New Zealand, you didn't even question it in the first place. You assumed it was going to happen. But yeah, he's going to get it done on a road course this year. I don't know which one, but he's going to get it done. Him and Allmendinger at some point this year are going to have a legendary battle. It should have been this Saturday, but ultimately stage cautions ruined it. But I think SVG is going to win this year. Though that last lap penalty screwed him in terms of points. He lost about 25 points due to that. So if he doesn't win and he has to point his way in and he misses the playoffs, that could be a place we point to. You get what I'm saying. Chase Elliott rocking the Dale Jr. 2014 Daytona 500 scheme is throwback. First throwback scheme unveiled, I believe. Everyone saw that announcement, and they always assumed that it was going to be Dale Jr. coming back. And I'm like, guys. And then they got pissed off when it was a Chase Elliott throwback announcement. I'm like, you idiots on the internet just assumed it was Dale Jr. coming to race at Cup. This is your own fault. You set yourself up for failure. Don't be pissed off at Chase Elliott and Hendry. This is your own doing, internet. But what do I know? So Sargent has improved massively. Yeah, he has. He got really better late in the year last year. He's done decent this year. He's still a little bit off Albon, but he's doing decent. He's keeping it clean for the most part. F1 Max lost the race. Yes, he did. It's a miracle. It's kind of crazy that like the last 20 winners are Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen. No Lewis Hamilton, no Sergio Perez, no Charles Leclerc, no Fernando Alonso. It's only been Verstappen and Sainz. And Sainz, I think that is Sainz's objective this year. Make Ferrari regret letting you go. You make them regret that decision every single weekend. You go somewhere else and you beat Ferrari. Oh boy, that's when it can get spicy. But obviously, we'll see where Sainz ends up. My guess is still Audi. It very well could be Red Bull, though, just depending on how Perez does. Perez has done good so far this year. You know, second, and fourth, fifth. Where did he finish on Sunday? But Perez, I think he lost some performance. Tear-off got in the brake duct or something. So I don't think Sunday was really indicative of his speed. I think from what I read, obviously I didn't watch the whole race. That was just something I read. But he got a penalty for impeding on qualifying. And once again, a penalty I don't like. Lewis Hamilton did worse at Saudi Arabia to Logan Sargent, and he didn't get any penalty. And Sargent had to completely drive off the track to avoid wrecking him. Nico Hülkenberg did not have to drive off the track to avoid wrecking Perez, and Perez got a 3-grid penalty. Make it make sense, F1. Your penalties suck. They make no sense. There's zero consistency. Oh, my goodness. But what do I know? Anyways, Peter Brock taking cars from teammates to win Bathurst titles. Was that against SVG? I'll take your word for it. All right, so Ernest Cunningham says, Peter Brock taking cars from teammates to win Bathurst titles. That's the big one in supercars. I love that track. Bathurst is such a cool track. Like, I've never watched a full race on it, but it is such a cool track. The elevation changes, the different types of turns. Oh, I love that track. It's so cool. His car is the problem here. The fans see it like that. The team and older fans don't so much. The team has 2 cars and 2 drivers. There is no his car. That's a good point for sure, Ricky, but I just still, it rubs me the wrong way. It still does. Yes, Albon is better. Yes, he gives you the better chance, but if you make a mistake, I think you should be punished for it. You know, I'm not saying that if Albon wrecks every week in practice that he should be sat out, but when you don't have the backup chassis, when you don't have the spare parts to rebuild the car, essentially, punishing Sargent for doing nothing wrong just rubs me the wrong way. A number 1 driver in every team has clauses for the fact. A number 2, like Logan, is grateful and lucky to have a seat. They know their place. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like a Verstappen, Hamilton, Alonso, whatnot. Obviously, Albon, since he's been at Williams, he's been their number 1 over Latifi and Sargent. So, obviously, you know, it would be a little bit more complicated. It would have been a little bit more outrageous if it was like someone more on par with Albon or even with Albon. But still, I get your point. I get your argument, but it still rubs me the wrong way. SVG versus Scotty Mack, parking into the car at the end of the race. All right, Ernest, you got 2 down. I'm going to write that 2. SVG v. Scotty Mack. Parking into car. All right. So if you don't know, the 4,000 subscriber special is for the Australians and New Zealanders who love SVG, and we are going to watch old SVG supercar highlights. So make sure to give suggestions. I'll make a more detailed post and video about it so you can give your suggestions. I'll write them down in this here book, and then we will get to it. 21 Sandown, broken ribs and collarbone, 17th to win. SVG was a machine. Jesus Christ. Who was that? Mick D says 2021 Sandown. SVG 17th to 1st while hurt. I know that there's more injuries on there. Actually, I'm going to write it down because I'll forget it later. Broke ribs and collarbone. Cool. Man, I'm still behind. SVG parking Scotty to win cup through. That was an awesome battle. Jono 82 says these are. I might just screenshot this later. Jono 82 says SVG hunting de Pasquale Auckland Super Sprint. Another place, Ricky says, another place, not a class thing. I mean, they have contracts clearly outlining the facts. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, all these drivers, the top drivers have all these clauses in their contract. There's that report that Verstappen has a clause in his contract that if I think it's it's either Helmut Marko or Adrian Newey. If one of them leaves Red Bull, Verstappen's contract is like officially not terminated, but like he can leave. Like the next day he can leave or something. So I know that these drivers have a lot of random but yet very specific clauses in their contract. So I get what you're saying there. Kyle Busch was on the Pat McAfee show. Yeah, I saw that. Saw a couple clips. Will the wrap have that piece of debris on the grill that Dale Jr. had in 2014? That's a good question. I don't know. That would be a funny touch, though. Peter Brock is essentially the Richard Petty of NASCAR. Okay. The Peter Brock comment was about car swapping. He won multiple title changes cars mid-race. Interesting. So that was not a recommendation for the SVG highlights video. All right, I'm going to cross that. I mean, I may watch it still, but I just won't do it in video form. Red Bull wants Perez in second if Max doesn't finish. NASCAR go to Riverside Road Course. Isn't that place like not exist, or am I thinking of a different Riverside? I don't know. He's known as the King of the Mountain, Mount Panorama, Bathurst. Once again, such a cool racetrack. Okay. Australians and New Zealanders, you can yell at me for not knowing the section of the track, but okay, so you go up the hill, right? You make that left-hander, that hard left-hander, and then you're kind of going up through some S's, and then there's the very top of the hill is that straight. It's like a super short straight, but then you're going downhill through the curves, like through some more S's kind of things, but it's like bank, 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 bank. That section of the track is so awesome. Watching onboards from that, epic. I love it. I don't know what that section of the track is called, but it's epic. It's cool. Indy had an all-star race yesterday. Alex Palou dominated. Yeah, I didn't watch it because I was at the Cup race in Austin. I don't know what to tell you about it. I saw a lot of negativity towards it. A lot of people seem to not like that race. So I will not add to the negativity just straight up because I don't know much about it. I didn't watch. No doubt you're right on the personal / human level, but at the end of 500 engineers and millions of logistically or logically focused unemotional dollars, we can't have the final call be about feelings. Yeah, Ricky, like for sure. That's why the call was made. That's how the call was made. You know, if Williams was thinking, you know, oh, Logan Sargent, we feel bad for you. You're driving. Like, you know, that's not how you want calls made. Like from, once again, like as I said, Albon's the better driver. It makes sense. But it's still, as you said, on that personal, on the human level, on the emotional level, on the future of Logan Sargent's career, on his confidence level, it still rubs me the wrong way. So, SVG's night drifting Red Bull. SVG night drifting Red Bull. Is Hamilton being punished for signing for Ferrari? If you're talking about him at Mercedes, like his car explodes and now they're saying he's going to be the test or experiment driver again. I mean, what do you expect? You announced it. You have a full season left when you announced that you were leaving. What did you expect? This happens all the time. If you announce too early that you're leaving your team, the team, look, they care about you, but they don't care about you that much. They know you're out the door. They don't want you taking this data. They don't want you taking this information to Ferrari. You're not going to have a good time this year. There's a reason I had Hamilton like 10th in this, or 8th, 9th, wherever I had him in the standings this year, is because Mercedes isn't gonna want to do anything with him. You know, they're not going to give him top secret information when he's just going to call up Fred Vasseur and be like, hey, Fred, yo, talk to the engineers. They're doing this, this, and this. And it's like an 18% increase in performance. Like, oh, like, come on. Like, let's be honest. They may go all in on one race. Like the British Grand Prix, if Hamilton wants to win his final British Grand Prix with Mercedes, Mercedes might say, all right, let's go all out for this one. Let's try to get it done for him. But other than that, they're just going to be like, screw you, man, you're leaving us. Not like in a mean way, but like a, all right, get out of here. Bye-bye. Remember Kyle Busch? After Kyle Busch announced that he was leaving to RCR, like Kyle Busch's car blew up or ran 30th. Like they alternated. His car was blowing up or running 30th. I'm not saying Hamilton's going to blow up every other week, but I'm just saying it's awkward. It's weird. There's a little bit less care to your side of the garage once you announce you're leaving. This isn't like football. And well, I guess football is, you know, you got play calls. And we've gone too far. Winning last race ever at, oh boy, Puco. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't pronounce anything. I'm going to put last win. Puco. All right. SVG last burnout at, once again, I don't know how to pronounce that. Grosjean crashed on lap 1 in the heat race for the Thermal Club. Once again, guys, I didn't watch anything IndyCar. The only thing I knew is that this race handed out a lot of money and that people, once again, not sure why they didn't like it, but people seem to not like it, whether it was the racing or something else. NASCAR Abu Dhabi go crazy. I don't know what that means. Okay. SVG's championship winning burnout at Adelaide. SVG Adelaide burnout. At Adelaide for supercars, do they run the old F1 track? that they ran in like the 90s and stuff? Random question, but I'm just curious. Lewis Hamilton's in the Mercedes-AMG commercial. Yeah, they'll use him for marketing. So they'll use him for promotions. He's still got that logo on his shirt. He's still got the logo on the hat. But as far as they're concerned, in terms of the data, he is Italian. Not literally, but, Ferrari. Is that offensive to do that? If it's offensive, I'm sorry. Oops, my bad. It looked worse down here. That was this, not the middle finger. F1 teams can be mad at their drivers. Yeah. Didn't Ricciardo's last year at Red Bull, didn't he have like 9 DNFs or something crazy like that? It's okay. New Zealand place names can be very difficult for foreigners. Yeah. There's a lot of places on the earth that their names hard to pronounce. I can't pronounce them all. I mispronounce names in cities and even countries sometimes. I try my best to do good with it, with names and whatnot. But if it's my first time reading it on a video, it's rough. But once people correct me, I do my best to get it right. And if I still get it wrong, people yell at me. And then that's when I'm like, all right, we got to change something up here and make it right. NASCAR going to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Is this like breaking news? NASCAR's going to Abu Dhabi? I haven't been on the Twitters in about an hour. I'm not seeing anything, so I'm very confused. Let's see what's. Oh my, we've been going for almost an hour and a half. Well, I've got to admit it's dinner time here in the U.S. of A. I got to go make myself some food or something. But thanks for watching this live stream. Really good turnout, really good questions. It took me forever to catch up, which is a good thing. I love the questions. We talked about COTA. We talked about COTA mainly. We talked about Australia, but we talked about supercars on here. So that's going to be the 4,000 subscribers special, watching SVG tear up some supercars. Not like wreck them, but, tear it up in a cool way. Like, yeah, he's tearing it up, man. Whatever the kids say these days. But thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the videos over the weekend from the track. Tomorrow, I will be doing my full weekend video vlog, whatever you want to call it, where I put together all my highlights. Once again, I walked around the track for a lot on Saturday, so you're going to see a lot of different perspectives of the course. But Sunday for the race was from one spot, and then Saturday I sat in 2 different places. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video or whatever. Join the Fantasy League if you want. It's been a fun time here in the live stream. We will do this every Monday. The Monday after COTA is concluded. Next week, we will be doing the Monday after Richmond. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun race weekend. So I'll see you later. Also, actually, no. I got nothing else. That's actually it.